Welcome to Memphis Style Politics. I'm Gale Carson, and today we're going to be discussing the November 4th election, and there are 4 constitutional amendments that's going to be on the ballot, which are extremely important, and those amendments will be changes to our Constitution. And my guests today are State Representative Mark White and also State Representative Johnnie Turner. And what we're going to be discussing is the First Amendment that is really controversial, and it deals with abortion. State Representative Mark White, you are one of the sponsors of this amendment. Is that correct?
Correct. I did vote for the
Okay. So could you just explain to the viewing audience what this amendment encompasses?
Sure. Well, Amendment 1 is either a yes or no vote on this. And the reason it's controversial because it does deal with the topic of abortion, which is a value-based issue. Now, Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. So the reason...
Well, for some people who are not real familiar with Roe versus Wade, could you just give a brief description of it for those who just may not know much about it?
Roe versus Wade, which was by the U.S. Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court back in the year 1972, I believe, stated that abortion was a privacy right for the woman. The woman had the right to make the decision with her own body whether or not she would have an abortion or not. Previous to that, like Tennessee, back in 1883, we had a law in the books that abortions were unlawful except to preserve the life of the mother. Well, when 1972 came along, 90 years later, the federal government struck that down. So what began to take place in various states was, well, since abortion is legal, we understand that, but we would like to regulate those certain things, such as if a woman's going to have an abortion in the second trimester, that she have that done in a hospital. Many people see that as that's just a protection of the woman to make sure that if she's in a clinic, someplace where they don't have all the proper tools and procedures, that her life is not endangered. And also such regulations is if you're underage, to get consent of your parents, or a 48-hour waiting period. Now, Tennessee, as well as other states, had certain laws like that on the books. And then in 1992, the Tennessee Supreme Court, using our Tennessee Constitution, said that the right to privacy superseded, and so our Tennessee Supreme Court, I believe it was in the year 2000, under the Planned Parenthood versus Sunquest, who was the governor then, stated that under the Tennessee Constitution, no, you can't have any regulations on this because of the right to privacy of the woman. And so what this Amendment 1 now is attempting to do is go back and put the Tennessee Constitution in a neutral position. And like the first line, there are several lines of the amendment that people will be voting on, but nothing in this Constitution secures or protects a right to an abortion or requires the funding of an abortion. So really it's an attempt to say, okay, the Constitution of Tennessee is neutral, so that the court systems necessarily can't come and say we cannot have certain regulations, which some people in the legislature believe that we need to do that to protect the life of the woman.
Okay, Representative Johnnie Turner, your views are quite different from...
Diametrically opposed. Mark is my good friend, but the information that he's giving is not correct. What they're doing is trying to find aspects that will appeal emotionally by saying that we shouldn't have abortion clinics because they're not being regulated. That is not true. What they're trying to do is to supersede the power of the Supreme Court. Since the highest court in the land has given sanction to abortion because of the privacy issue, the legislative branch is trying to do the job of the judicial branch. And it's an insult to our intelligence as women. And the thing about this is, I'll just take the General Assembly. We have 109 men in both houses. We only have 23 women. Yet women make up 51.7% of the population in the state. The vote for this ridiculous constitutional amendment was 100 for and 26 against. If we had had a percentage of women elected in that office, there is no doubt in my mind that it would have been different. Not only is it misleading, it's not clear, it takes away the privacy issue, which the Supreme Court itself said was a factor that carried more weight than the emotional whatever that is involved in this.
Well, can I interject something right here? I want to address the concerns of the amendment. If it were to pass, women could not have an abortion if they were raped. They could not have an abortion if there was incest. They could not have an abortion if it would negatively impact their health. Say, for example, if I have cancer and I have to have radiation or chemotherapy, if I have those, it kills the child or hurts the child. If I don't, then I die. So that decision would be taken away also. So how do we, those are three issues that's really dominating communications right now, those things right there. Because even when I've talked to people who are strongly opposed to abortion, when they hear those three things right there, no exceptions for rape, incest, or a woman's health, some of those people change their opinions because there's no exceptions.
Right, and that is not what this amendment does under my understanding.
Okay.
It just makes our Constitution neutral. Now, what you're talking about, in any generation, the legislature could run legislation on either side, okay. either make it more favorable for abortions or a few more restrictions, such as I mentioned previously. Nothing in this amendment would do that. Now, the legislature of any generation may make legislation like that. My opinion is that most people in the legislature now would not do that as far as limiting your rape, incest, and the life of the mother. They want to protect the life of the mother too, and these things. So these are not.
So you're saying that those three things will not be taken away.
If it's not in there, then they have the right to do. They'll do whatever they want to.
So
this.
The second sentence in there says the elected officials or the representatives, they will be the ones making the decision. What exactly does that language mean? When you're saying, so it would be politicians, elected officials making the decision about whether an abortion can take place?
Well, in this political climate, the fact that the General Assembly would have a right to tell me what to do with my body, it's scary. That's a decision that I should make in collaboration with my doctor.
And family.
And my family. That's me. I have to live with that. People that don't believe in abortion already have a choice. They just don't do it. But for those others, low socioeconomic levels, rich white women can get their private jets and go anywhere they want to, or take their daughters or their granddaughters. It's not fair, and the fact that you are raising questions for clarification on the constitutional amendment, something as important as this is going to impact me, my body. What happens to, you mentioned about rape, incest, and right. So it should be clear. It is not clear. And a constitutional amendment is a permanent thing. It takes years to change the Constitution. And so why, if it's not, why shouldn't pass this from the first reason is it's not clear.
Okay, Representative White, the majority in the House and Senate are Republicans.
Correct.
And just based on my education about Republicans is that you don't believe in larger government, you don't believe in government being involved in our lives, you want smaller government. But this is interjecting government directly into the personal lives of families. So how is that different than what you all believe?
Yeah, well, and I don't disagree with anything Representative Turner said. Let me read that second line so we have clarification. It says the people retain the right through their elected state representatives and state senators to enact, amend, or repeal statutes regarding abortion. I have been in the state legislature for 5 years. There's 99 members in the House. Representative Turner and I came in at the same time, by the way. And since we have been there, out of 99 members, we go back in session January, right at 65 members have turned over. So the argument on the other side is that this body is much more responsive to the current will of the people, because we're up for election every 2 years. The judiciary is every 8 years, and so do you want one person or 5 people making the decision over the duly elected representatives of the people? Because you can get to them very quickly and express your opinion. So that is, but to answer your question, is that the reason I'm comfortable with a yes on this is not that because we're not discussing abortion. What we're giving the legislature the freedom to say, look, if something is going on in an industry that is endangering a woman's body, this is a very invasive practice. If you do have a clinic pop up that's not, the Planned Parenthood, they do inspect those, but there are some that are not.
But do you need a new law for that?
Yeah, well, I don't know the name of one, but yes, well, we studied it.
But if you know of some, do you need a new law to shut them down, to make them do what they need to do to make things right and proper? Do you need to change the Constitution for a few clinics that may?
Well, we had some to protect it, and the Tennessee Supreme Court in 2000 struck them down. The states around it, the 8 states around us, don't have the same rules, and so they have these regulations, and so that's created an atmosphere in Tennessee where people come across our borders for it. And so we're trying to, from the way I see it, we're trying to protect women.
Well, can't we just pass something that would just directly regulate those institutions or those facilities, as opposed to changing the Constitution and not making exceptions for rape, incest, and a woman's health? Those are the greater issues, I think, that's a concern to many people. Yeah. If I'm raped, I ought to be able to make a decision whether or not I want to keep that child.
I've got a daughter.
If a 13 or 14-year-old child is molested or there's incest in the family, the family ought to be able to make that decision.
Right.
I mean, when you start talking about the state legislature, that's
well, our experience with the actions of the state legislature, this amendment can pass or fail according to the response of the Memphis and Shelby County. That's a very important point. And so when we talk about what the legislature could do, I mean, I'm glad you made that point. If everybody's so anti-government and don't want government doing this, why is it feel you have the right to invade my privacy? Because I'm a woman? If I was represented in fair numbers, this would be different. The Constitution is the most important document that governs and regulates our lives in any state. This is an issue that does not belong in the Constitution, particularly since it is so unfair to women. That's what it is. You're taking away my right to make a decision about what's the best for me, for using some of the same criteria that you have used. But yet, if you force me to carry that child, the same people that passed that legislation or promoted won't fund pre-K education, won't to take away their food stamps if the kids fail in school, aren't doing well, won't support giving them, they call it handouts and welfare, and they don't realize they won't support public education, won't give them those funds that they need. So if you care about the child that much, take care of the living.
Right.
Okay.
And my response to that would be...
Because we're going to have to wrap up on this.
Right. I mean, very quickly, my response to that, not trying to invade the privacy of the woman, but if someone comes in the state and sets up a clinic that performs these operations, I want to protect the young girls and the women who go to those clinics, that they are set up properly and they have the proper equipment there in case something goes drastically wrong. With that. So it's more of protection. And right now, the Tennessee Supreme Court, under the current Constitution, will not allow us to set up those regulations.
Because there's a rationale for that. Because they would have stipulations and rules that were so barbaric or so that nobody could have an abortion. It's just a political maneuver, and the courts recognize that.
Okay.
I can appreciate my colleagues thinking, and he's a good man, but he's wrong on this one.
Okay, I want to thank you both for talking about this so very important issue to women and families all over the state of Tennessee. And I'm hoping that voters will go to the polls, and women in numbers, to vote their conviction on Amendment 1. The election is November 4th. Please go out and vote for Amendment 1.
Vote no on Amendment 1. I mean, we vote no. I haven't heard anything yet that would make me vote yes. I am responsible for my body. And ladies and like-thinking men,